So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we read then the holy instructions, firstly then, we always enjoy reading Yeshayahu because he was a prophet, very compacted, and for those who truly understand the instructions and they want always more enlightenment of the path, you find then Yeshayahu extremely pleasing reading. And then, layered with Yeshayahu, then we also read Daniel. During this time of the restoration period, there is a big problem, because the time of this restoration period involves firstly then tabernacling on the land of Cush, as precisely as the prophet Yeshayahu spoke. And then the second situation is regarding then the trade of the Gentiles, because there is a direct relation with the first son of Ibrahim. Ishmael was a king, and he was very known during his time. And then as the world is preparing itself for the joining of China with then the Arab nations because of the fuel, petroleum, you then understand the importance of taxes. Taxes are going to be a big trouble. Nations at this point, they are regarding themselves yet very strong because they have the printing machine then under siege. Printing machine, understandably, is making more money, printing more money. So let's evaluate what made Daniel so popular. Daniel was then obviously from the lineage, and he was then in Babylon, where he worked under many kings, and one of them was Darius the Mede. During the time of the transition of kings, why was then Daniel so popular and he stayed so steady? Where then when you read a king, then you read another king, and you don't understand how then this changing of kings did not cause any trouble as far as the leadership of Daniel. So then, there was Daniel, always reliable and honorable. And then as he was performing his duties, Daniel had always a sense of a divine presence watching him doing his dealings, as if a person was then watching over your shoulders. This was truly the service of Daniel. He was reliable, and as he was involving himself with 100% trustability, yet he did not cheat, and the more he was honest, the more then trades of the areas regarding then Babylon was always increasing. Then, how do we translate this time of Daniel? Then during the time of the 1,000 years of the Messiah already gone, already spent, and then came the 1,000 years of deceit, or then no holy cities, and then as we are then during the time of the restoration period, How could we translate what Daniel then experienced his time system-wise? And then during the time of the Messiah, the same system related with the Gentiles of his time was directly related with Daniel. We can be sure of this fact. As then the prophets of old spoke of this system, then as during the time of the 1,000 years of the Messiah and the holy cities, the prophets of those cities directing the Gentile world, they were always making mentioning of Daniel, because the system was already set in place. The Messiah would never waste his time working with Gentiles if the system was already tested. So then, nations mostly are very unreliable as far as government is concerned, because they have their hands on the printing machine. Now let me ask you this: what would be the only way of placing limit in the amount of money stolen or misused or abused? How can you place a limit in so many people placing their hands in a jar of candy? Because these are how most of the governments are, when they don't have responsibilities as far as limiting the amount of money spent. Then it gets in a very huge feast. It is true, nations must develop, nations must spend. But spending so much without regard of some sort of control causes then the people become very angry. So then, in a world as it is, you find in the Eurozone not doing so nicely. You find then many other nations troubling themselves to trying to control then the people, and there is no answer or no easy way out. Let's evaluate during the time of Daniel. Daniel worked under many kings, and he was involved with a very specialized system where then nations were doing trade with Babylon. However, the shining light of the time was then the system of Daniel. The most important was then trust. They were used to trust. They trusted the system developed by Daniel, but then the nation of Babylon at times would not speak of Daniel because there was already an existing system set up by him long ago. As if you were drinking a milk or then some sort of a juice, and it's pasteurized, but then you have for so many years then drank these milk or then juice, and Pasteur, you don't even know who the person is. But when you buy then the product, then is stated pasteurized. It would be similarly as the time of Daniel. So then, taxes. A portion of a sold product. Why do we make mention of products? Because as we read Galah, known as Revelation, those people who are saved are revealed. If you are not revealed, you can't be saved, because salvation is synonymous of revelation. You must be revealed, so then you can get saved. Then, and the merchants of the earth. Does the name caravan bring some memories? And the merchants of the earth and the caravans of the earth, does it not have a link with Ishmael? Yes, it does. Because we are speaking of the couple of sticks of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. The restoring of the first son and the restoring of the second son. Then why products? Then comes and returns the second question. How do we make some sort of a control or make sense out of this system and then limit so many people placing then the hands in the jar of candies? Speaking directly of then the printing money machine. As we understand, it is very popular for nations then printing money and they taking them back from the back gate to do something else. The example of Daniel of the 10th chapter is precisely related with the kingdom of China, or the Eastern Kingdom. Daniel, when it came to the 10th chapter, he was then understanding the statue and the base thereof, where iron does not mix with the clay. From an economist, when you observe, let's say for instance a jar with so many names with a certain color and some others with other colors, yet is part of a whole, WHOLE, you find it then interesting trying to make sense of it. As you understand, the head of gold was Babylon, and then came then the silver, and then later came then bronze, and then iron and clay. Understandably, you find in the midst of this situation then taxes. You find merchants. You find caravans. Started with the caravans, then on the back of camels. You find in Joseph, when he was then in Egypt, he was sold to the Ishmaelites. And then was a caravan. They brought him then to Egypt. And then you find at the end, with the same understanding, the same line, related with the merchants. Then you find ships, huge ships. But the meaning is similar. Taxes. As then the nations are preparing themselves for what's coming in the near future, and then comes the situation, how can you limit these people stealing so much money? The only way is related with merchants. You find caravans, you find merchants, the merchants of the earth, and then the ships. What do you relate with ships and caravan? Products. Products sold. But then at the end of time, we must understand then the rationale of the Holy Creator himself. How would he take then the power from so many and distribute them amongst the others? Without jeopardizing his holy word, obviously. The answer is very simple. Products. You make a system of investments related with products. So you relate then products and merchants, products and caravans. Then you take the money that so many people, though they are few, they make investments and they scoundrelize and they steal. They make profits for themselves. They cheat. Then you get rid of these junkies and you take then the money and you invest yourself. And the only way you can do it is via computer. So then, taxes. As the world then is shifting, there's a transitional time. What can you understand as far as buying or then investing via the same system? The only way you can understand this point is by having a virtual monetary system in your own computer. It is so absolutely obvious. So you can send money, you can receive, you can buy products, you can send, and then you can invest via the same system or the same line. When you make time for yourself and then you have banking in your computer, you have then an authorized way of receiving and sending, and the information is under your name. China is then the most important as far as the 10th chapter and the 11th chapter. You obviously understand China as synonymous of products. Not saying that people should be compared with products, but as far as understanding the analogy of merchants and caravans and products and taxes, then you understand China equals products. And then if a person is purchasing and projecting what's going on in the future, obviously you're going to relate with products. So then, the system. As far as in your computer, when you log on and make a purchase online, you then select a store, you buy your product, and you click on it, and you have funding over there in a virtual form. Then you pay for it and you select then a freighter. That's where then we link freighter, merchants, caravans. But then the system in a computer, the nations, they can't receive taxes from. Though there are many sites, they themselves, they monitor the purchases and they select taxation. Okay, fine and legal. However, if you have banking from another country, then becomes a bit more complicated. For instance, Bitcoin, very popular worldwide, they don't have a link with central banks, as we understand. And there is no way for them to charge taxes if the customer using does not have any kind of practices on self-taxation. Then the governments don't receive any taxes. And that's where then the near future taxation is going to be a huge problem. Daniel, however, already gave the answer. He was related with the time where then the system was very available, and people gladly paid their taxes because the money was properly invested. In today's world, when the people pay taxes, mostly gets squandered. Let's give an example. The president of Brazil, for instance, in 2006, purchased a refinery in Texas 8 times more of its value. No person went to jail. No person is answering for it. They can't make legal documents against the person, so then licensed pirates. Now let me ask you this: how can you trust the system of a government if they don't establish some sort of a punishment against these scoundrels? And they smile around and they don't give a damn. But then system-wise, when the new system comes, if they don't have set up in the computer, the nations won't receive a cent of taxes. Then, as the BRICS are coming to Brazil in July of this year, and Dragon Mart is opening in Cancun in Mexico, you don't have to go very far what's going to take place with the economy of the world. And then the BRICS cable must start up its venture from Brazil to Portugal, 37,000 kilometers of cable under the sea. First it was then the BRICS cable because of the new system, and then later on they changed the cable because of the espionage. US is spying around. People are not as stupid as governments they think. They have to be real cautious what they do, because some medias of the world are extremely serious. You don't care if it's the president or somebody else or the Pope even. If they screwed up and screwing around, they get on the news. Now, scoundrels of some nations, then they steal, they rob, they screw around with people's money and they don't get punished. So then, Daniel gave us a very important factor of a system. He spoke of many areas of his very own. And then as we read the merchants of the earth in Revelation, we understand then the caravans of old. So then later, we should then explore the 11th chapter further, because China plays a vital role in the 10th chapter. Even the prophet himself had to fast for more than 20 days, and then he did receive the leadership of China via the 10th chapter under another name. And then the 11th chapter you'll find China playing its role, and then the 12th chapter is a wrap up. But then it was mentioned yesterday regarding then the understandings of the soul. Should explore these more next time, because the human beings, they have the first, second, and third factors, body, soul, and spirit, and each of them should be then explored. We will do this because there is also psychology involved. those people who are then familiar with it, we must then explore then conscience, subconscious, unconscious, and inconscious. There are 4 of them. Most known, there are then the first, second, and third, conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. But there is in another area, very important, inconscious. In English, it doesn't have much translation regarding it. But in the areas of dreams, they are not voluntary areas of humans. They are categorized then in the area of inconscience. I'm going to observe these and explain the next time, so please stay tuned.